Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. Well, we're going way wide today. We're going right to the root of what's making us tick and not tick these days in the headline and the search for humanity's redemption, let's say, in the face of a challenging time. We have a visitor today who's in New Haven for 3 weeks. He hails from Sweden and from India. He's had a fascinating life journey. He's on a mission to help us find our better selves. His name is Dada Shambhushivananda. He's a yogic monk, a teacher of meditation since 1979, and a chancellor of the Ananda Marga Gurukula. I might have said that wrong. But he basically is in charge of a large movement of schools and institutes. They have a new magazine promoting the idea of neo-humanism. Welcome to our studio. It's so nice. It was very nice to chat and get to know you before we went on the air. Was that introduction accurate?
Thank you. Yes, quite accurate. Yes.
Okay. So welcome to New Haven.
Thank you.
And I guess you've done 2 out of 3 Mondays at Lyric Hall. Next Monday at 7 p.m. will be the 3rd session he's doing. If what you listen to today gets you interested in hearing a little more. So Dada, what exactly brings you to New Haven? Is it preaching spreading the word about neo-humanism?
Well, I'm actually the host, hosted by Peter Dodge of The Edge of the Woods, and we have known each other for almost 45, 50 years. And I come to US almost every year, and I am building a university township in a rural part of Bengal, in West Bengal in India.
A university township. What does that mean? A community that's just based around a university?
Yeah, well, we are building the township as well as the university.
And is it vacant land or what's the...
Yeah, it's about 5,000 hectares of land that we own, the organization owns. And then there we have about 50 primary schools for children. We have high schools, we have degree college, we have teachers training college. And
so that's sort of going to be the nerve center of this neo-humanist movement that you're building is going to be there in Bengal, rural Bengal.
Yeah, that is the kind of the headquarters of this movement. But we are also in more than 100 countries all over the world. I am presently based in Sweden, in Stockholm, and we have a training center in central part of Sweden, where those who want to become yogic monks and nuns, they go there and they take training for 3 years, and then they go and do volunteer work in different parts of the world.
And is this the same thing as Ananda Marga, or is it overlap?
Yeah, Ananda Marga is the parent organization, and the board of education of Ananda Marga is called the Ananda Marga Gurukul. And Gurukul means it's a very ancient system of education where the teacher and the students, they, like a Socratic approach, where they transmit their higher consciousness in the children. And they transmit the values which we need to create a better world.
So neo-humanism would be the umbrella term?
Yes, neo-humanism is the philosophy which is guiding our activities.
So what is neo-humanism?
Neo-humanism, humanism is love for other human beings, where human being is the center of everything. But when the love of human heart extends to embrace the entire living and the so-called non-living world, then that is neo-humanism.
So neo-humanism includes but looks beyond human beings of connecting to forms of life.
Yes, all
and
forms
our surroundings for some kind of general connectedness and unity. Is that?
Well, it is based on the idea that everything in this creation is the manifestation of supreme consciousness. So nothing is inanimate. When we take food, for example, or medicine, you go to a doctor and he prescribes you. There is the allopaths, they treat you differently. The homeopaths, they treat you differently. The Ayurveds treat you differently. It's the same body. So, they have a different model of the human body, of how it works. So actually there is, because we still do not have a comprehensive model of the human body, which shows the limits and efficacy of different healing traditions. And our idea is that actually we need to go into the submolecular level and into what we call the microvita understanding of the human body. That means that everything in this creation, even an atom, consists of billions of living organisms, which are called microvitum in singular and microvita in plural.
Micro.
Vita means the vitality. So what we consider to be inanimate actually is not inanimate, because it also has certain properties which makes animation possible. Salt, oxygen, nitrogen, potassium, all these things, they have their own unique properties. And without the calcium in the body, we won't be able to live and move and do things.
So we're not living in isolation.
Yes.
We are connected to everything.
Everything, whether it is so-called inanimate or animate, organic, or it is something more developed, which is in the form of human.
And I would argue that there are a lot of fronts, philosophical fronts, in our modern society where people are coming to similar conclusions, correct, about the interconnectedness of other beings, and you're saying even inanimate in our surroundings, correct. So I guess one question I'm imagining you deal with when you make these visits is, what do we do with that realization?
Well,
understanding that we're connected to each other and what's around us, how does that change how we treat each other and treat the earth?
Well, first is that we have to recognize that everything in this universe has its own existential value. Every creature, every atom, everything has its own existential value. And then it has certain utility value. Maybe not for human beings always. It may have utility value for other creatures, for other organisms. So we cannot take away the habitats of all creatures and only make it human-centric. Because when we do that, it's like we are decreasing the degrees of freedom, because the life is whole because of the presence of all beings, all entities in this universe. So, and now many, many species are becoming extinct, and many languages are becoming extinct. Many people, everything is becoming like homogeneous, And
I guess we attribute some of that to climate change, a lot of which is man-made, right?
Right.
Part of it to globalization has become more connected as a world. There's a homogenization of culture and language.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden there was this new consciousness among the world and we started being caretakers of the land, caretakers trying not to leave a footprint when we walk on this earth to destroy rather than to preserve and create, it would still be true that we would lose species, correct? It's true that some cultures and languages would die out. So to what extent is the unfortunate tendency of human beings to destroy and not have that consciousness part of the process of natural evolution and devolution? To what extent is the efforts you and others make to raise consciousness and to preserve life also part of the natural process of species journey through our planet? Does that make sense as a question?
Yes, change is inevitable in creation. It's always, human beings are also evolving. Before, from apes to human beings, human beings have not been here from the beginning of the creation.
We're like the last 2 minutes or less, right?
Yeah.
In terms of cosmic time,
Right.
The last 20 seconds.
Yeah. So I think changes will occur, but we have to learn from the past and preserve the positive things which have been there in the creation, and build upon them. And because many of the, for example, herbs, they are becoming extinct also. So we need to, and they can be very useful for the creation. So I think in preservation of the different species and different organisms, there is both good and bad in the creation. But we have to learn how to harness the potentiality which is there in the creation for the good of all.
And I guess I wonder, is that part of what it means to be human? Because we can make a choice, right?
Right.
And other species, you have invasive species, right? So when I go in Edgewood Park, there are invasive species that have taken over from stuff that used to be here. So then there are people who want to come preserve those species. But then I wonder, is that an interruption of a process? Like, I support it, right? But is that, to what extent is our intervention not necessarily steering? How do we know when our interventions we know it's easy, we shouldn't be polluting, we know we shouldn't be killing off species, we shouldn't be, creating all this smog that makes it hard for people to breathe and changes the climate. How do we know in general when our intervention is positive and leaves the world a better place?
Well, in every creature, there is a thirst for happiness. There is a thirst for joy. There is a thirst for harmony, for equanimity, for tranquility, for peace. And I think when we disturb, nobody wants to give away their life willingly. Everybody wants to exist. So, of course, some things will disappear in course of time, but they should not disappear prematurely. And, like a child is born, we know that one day the child will grow up and one day he has to die. But when the child dies prematurely, then that's, concern for us that, because we did not take care of it, or if we understand the things better, perhaps we can allow that life to manifest its potentiality. So I think our goal is not to stop the process of creation and destruction. That is, that will continue forever. But we just make it possible for every entity to manifest their innate potentiality.
That's kind of beautiful. And we're talking about that with Dada Shambhushivananda, who's a yogic monk and leader of a worldwide network based in Bengal, but all over the world, promoting neo-humanism. He's in New Haven for 3 weeks. You can catch him at Lyric Hall next Monday night at 7. He's here on WNHH FM's Dateline, New Haven. So when I'm listening to you talk, I think about it can feel overwhelming to us sometimes as humans, right? We worry, how do we do right every day? And it's a challenge not to be destructive, right? To say that the world's a better place, even in a small way, because you were here. And sometimes we, in our efforts to make it better, we can have unintended consequences to make it worse, right? We try our best, right? So I think about creation, that process. So we know all sorts of stuff we can avoid doing that would reduce harm, whether it's use of fossil fuels or supporting, mono agriculture or big agriculture. How about the act of creation? That's human too, right? When we strive, we have our goals to have a business or to create art or to make machines. How do we make sure that we have what you would call a neo-humanistic framework in which we make those decisions so that we make sure we are contributing rather than destroying?
I think we have to function at 3 levels. One is the individual level. We are born, and we know that we are born with a certain level of consciousness, and a stage will come when we have to leave this world. So we want to be able to leave this world with a higher level of consciousness. That is the purpose of our existence.
Is consciousness.
Yes, how to raise our consciousness until it becomes one with the supreme consciousness. So individually, we have to learn how to take care of this body, how to control our propensities, emotions, mind, and and then how to connect with that part of us, the cosmic spirit in us. When that leaves the body, even billions of neurons, they are not able to do anything. So I think we have such a precious resource which is within us, but people spend their whole life never even taking the time to explore it. So that's why, I teach meditation, I teach certain yogic practices, I teach about nutrition and diet and health and what we can do, so that at the individual level we can be at peace with ourselves and explore that part of us, where there is happiness and joy. So it's not dependent only on something external. But second is that we live in a community, we live in a society, we live in institutions. And if the institutions are doing things which are taking us in the wrong direction, then we become party to that also. So that's why we need to engage ourselves with those institutions which have similar values, who want to help to create a better world and to create a peaceful world. And I think that's where we need also advocacy and political advocacy also, because all those things affect us. The decisions of the governments, of the leaders, they affect millions of people. So therefore, I think it's important that we follow or we operate from a higher level of consciousness. Like as it is said, we cannot solve the problems from the same level of consciousness which has created them. And today we have war, whether in Ukraine or whether in Israel, Palestine, or whether in Afghanistan and other places. And I think we need a new approach, a new way of thinking in order to address the problems of humanity and of the planet Earth. So that's why I think beyond the institutional, we need a new philosophy of life. And that's the reason why I'm going all around the world talking about neo-humanism, because I think even the humanistic approach is not enough today. If we think about our religion, our race, our culture, that is not enough. Everybody needs to coexist in this creation. They need a place. When we take away their habitats, then we create problems. Like when we took away the habitats of bats, and we got this coronavirus,
right,
which created havoc. Something so small, and yet it just put everybody on their knees. So I think we have to begin to recognize that everybody who is born in this created in this world, we need to think about their welfare and what they need for their basic existence. All people want a good home, good schooling, and they want good food and things like this. Now, our military budget goes in billions and trillions of dollars. If we could, come together and direct and start minimizing the wealth that we spend on just killing one another, and instead utilize it for solving the problems of these people, I think this world will become a happy place.
Jeff Hutchins writes in, welcome. We apologize for Paul. As you can see, he's very smart, but doesn't mind thinking out loud. And neo-humanism, ! Thanks for listening, Jeff, and for weighing in. So I kind of thought I heard a two-step here. That the first step for getting where we want to go as a people and toward a neo-humanist vision starts with the individual finding inner peace. That you can't, is it accurate that, you can't help others until you are in a position where you've raised your consciousness, where you're starting from a place of the right goals? And is that accurate?
Yes, we have, because it's not only theoretical, you have to live that life of harmony and of joy and of happiness and peace. If you don't have peace within, you cannot bring peace outside.
And then you're saying once you have the peace within, you apply that to like-minded people of advocacy in the institutions you work in.
Yes.
So for people who are working all day, 2 jobs, struggling to make ends meet, they have a hard time sometimes thinking about consciousness, being in touch with what they care about just to get through the day. How do we apply neo-humanism? Is that we as society alleviate those conditions so that people do have time to and space to center themselves and connect with who they are and who's around them?
Yes, I think, first of all, the people have to make commitment to themselves, and they have to say, okay, I have to find some time to go deeper inside of me, because the spiritual power in the human beings is much more powerful than intellectual acumen, and the intellect is more powerful than the physical. But today, the physical has become more important, and everything else goes into the background. So I think that's why we need a value-based civilization, and it will start with the individual. But then it's not enough only that, one practices by themselves. I think we also need to bring it in the field of through knowledge to educate the new generation in those values. That's why, I have about 1,200 schools for children all over the world. And why I focus on children? Because I feel that they are the future. So if we start at a very early age and we inculcate those values, for example, just in the last, during the Corona period, 2 years, I was in this place in India, in West Bengal, Anandnagar. And there I started some classes like Ayurveda classes for adults, but small children would come and disturb. So what I did was I thought maybe I should do something for them. So I just spread a mat on the ground and started with 10 children. And soon those 10 became 20 and 30 and 40.
What did you teach them?
And I have never taught children in my life. I know I have given talks at the universities and the places, but I just, improvised many things. And they would come for 3 hours from 6 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning. And there were 30, 40 of them waiting even at 6 o'clock in the morning, to participate in the activities. And now these children, they can say thank you in 35 languages of the world. They do meditation for 10 minutes.
That's beautiful.
They practice yoga. They do drama, art, dance, and they can say, the numerals in Chinese, in German, and in different languages. So they learned about the periodic table of elements and things like about the space science, about the anatomy, physiology. They can tell you about the function of the frontal lobe and parietal lobe and temporal lobe and occipital lobe and the glands which are there in the body. I brought stethoscope for them so they can listen to their heartbeat and they can see something more is going on inside the body that they are ordinarily aware of. So, it was just an experiment which I started, but it became a very successful experiment. And of course, because I have a whole system of education called neo-humanistic education, and we have many scholars, one of my colleagues, Dr. Kathleen Casson, she's just written a book on, like a textbook on neo-humanist education. It's going to be published by New Age Publishing Company, I think, or something. So I think it is just to make them, to raise their level of awareness and consciousness. I would taught them songs, in their language, because my master, he composed about 5,019 songs, mostly in Bengali, but some in Sanskrit, some in English, some in Hindi, some in other languages. So, and they learned about 40, 50 of those songs. And they learned many old shlokas from Rig Veda, many sutras, and even simple things like the Supreme Consciousness is my father, this cosmic energy is my mother, and this universe is my homeland. Ideas like this, it raises their consciousness. So I felt that actually they are the best points of intervention if we want to create a better world. Instead of
are the schools full-day schools, or are they supplements to schools kids otherwise go to, your 1,200 schools?
No, there are regular schools, but this is a kind of a before school or after school program. So that is just like a learning center.
Gurukul. Sounds like they learn a lot more in the supplemental school.
Yes, in fact, they when they go to the other schools, they find that they are far ahead of the other kids because they have a level of understanding and their memory is so sharp. They do meditation, so their concentration level is much better. And so I'm really amazed at what these children, they could do in the future if they were given that attention. And I think basically it is just the love. They feel, I take them on learning journeys. On my Jeep, I would take them to the dairy farm, or take them to our soap factory, or I take them to the, dam and or to the mountain and things. So I think that relationship between the teacher and the student, that bond, which used to be there in the ancient Gurukul system, but with the guru and the disciple, that's very important. Once you establish that, then I feel that anything that I know, they can easily grasp. It's like even any one child learns, all the other children, they learn by themselves, but from among themselves. So you don't even have to make an effort to have them to memorize anything, nothing. It's just fun. They come there for 2, 3, and I used to spend almost 2 hours myself with the children. So like this, of course, we are trying now to bring such ideas in all the other schools also that we have. We have a school in Long Island. It's called the Progressive School of Long Island. It is running for almost, 35, 40 years. One of my friends, Eric Jacobson, who was, we were living together in Philadelphia when I was at Penn. And, first he started with a Montessori school, training in Montessori. And then he started a new humanist school in Merrick, Long Island, New York. And it's up to 8th grade. It's a regular school and very successful. And it's so like this we have, we have one in Oregon. We have in Asheville, North Carolina. We have in Central America. We have in Haiti. We are reaching out to about 35,000 children through the whole educational Ministry of Education. We are introducing many of these concepts and ideas there.
And we're talking to Dada Shambhushivananda, who's a yogic monk, chancellor of Ananda Marga Gurukula, tells us about the worldwide quest that he's helping to lead for neo-humanism and neo-humanistic values. You have a fascinating journey of your own. So you said you hadn't previously taught children.
Yeah.
You were teaching college kids about economics and business originally, right? You grew up in India?
Yes, I was born in India. You know, my name, Shambhushivananda, Shambhu means starting point of creation. And Shiva means pure consciousness. Ananda means bliss. So the bliss of pure consciousness in its primordial state. That is my spiritual name. And when I came here, I was already was practicing meditation. And I had my master in India at that time. And but when I came to Penn, and of course that was in 1969 when I came to US, and I joined because I was a gold medalist from Punjab University, North India. So it was easy to get admitted here and then pursued. But it was quite a challenge for me because it was a different life, different system, different people. And but it was the most interesting part of my, in my life, those 10 years, those
So
hippie days.
You were a hippie, but you were studying economics and business.
Yes.
Why were you pursuing that?
Well,
What was the goal?
I think, my worldly father, he was a criminal lawyer in the Supreme Court of India. And while in India, I was very much always with monks and nuns all the time, running around, doing these things. So he thought if he goes to America, he probably will forget all these things and he will be subdued by the glamour of America. So he thought that maybe that was his reason to encourage me to come here. And my, of course, journey was that I just wanted to fulfill my educational, career and then decide what I wanted to do. So after teaching for a few years, and so in 1979, I left everything and became a yogic monk.
Was there a day when you said you were in a classroom teaching about supply side economics or, the surplus value theory of labor? Was there a moment you said, this isn't my calling, I'm pivoting?
Yeah, in fact, while I was writing my doctoral dissertation, I had many options, but I chose a topic which would be more closer to this my humanistic approach to life, and that was planning nutrition interventions in developing countries. So I looked at what multinational corporations are doing and I developed models, of how that could affect the.
Was there yet the issue about Nestle and the infant formula?
Yes, all those kind of issues
were you
were
involved
there.
in that campaign?
Yeah. And so so after finishing my dissertation and things, then I decided, okay, well, I think I just want to do something which is real and not only because I was here removed from the worldly reality. So I spent 2 years in Africa, 2 years in the Middle East, and then about 10 years in Europe. And then I went back to India and I to work at that, Anandnagar, where I started the.
Were those trips to Middle East and Africa part of the research about nutritional interventions by government?
No, that was after I had done it. I was the head of our Ananda Marga mission in Africa, Europe, Middle East, and then Europe.
So was it a gradual process rather than a moment of revelation or pivot?
Yes, yeah. It was actually it was my calling all along. I knew that's what, and I have never regretted it because. I really got to see the people in the slums of Pangani, Nairobi, and I have used to go from Israel to Jordan, to Egypt, to Cyprus and Turkey and Syria and all those places. And so I really saw where people were, what were they going through. And I think in that way, of course, I had the tools, both academic as well as the meditation practices, which I taught in all these places. And I think then I realized that actually that is the solution. The solution is on 3 levels. It is a alternative socioeconomic model, which we call PROUT, Progressive Utilization Theory. Then it is neo-humanism, which is the mental outlook that where everything is interconnected and everything is important. And then the spiritual dimension, the yoga, the meditation, and the tantra. So I used all these 3 tools to help people to address different issues in different parts of the world. And I addressed the Lithuanian parliament when they declared independence. I was at the Kyoto Forum. I was at Parliament of World Religions. So I addressed many.
What was the proud aspect? I get the neo-humanism. I understand the spiritual, transcendental aspect of it. It sounds like there's also a specific kind of policy.
Yes, the socio-economic system.
And what is that system?
That's basically that, the centralization of economic power is what is at the root of many problems. The wealth disparities is the biggest problem today in the world. And now it has come within the academic discourse where, Thomas Piketty, his research work has shown that, how much concentration of wealth is increasing. Even during the corona period, the concentration increased. So, and Prout is just decentralization of economy. Let each area, each zone become economically self-sufficient and self-reliant in all its minimum essentialities of life. And if we had done that, then during corona period, we would not have to suffer so much because you would be able to draw, your resources from your local areas. And so that's one aspect of it, but also that we need to have a global collaboration because the nature does not distinguish between one country or another country. So we need more global collaboration politically in order to like Millennium Sustainable Goals, for example, or to create a society in which everybody's needs are taken care of.
So as you're aware, there's a whole reigning, though now being reconsidered, economic approach and political approach that runs exactly counter to what you're talking about, which is neoliberalism and globalism.
Yes.
So the idea is that you talk about how we're interconnected as nations, we need to work together politically. The theory, which didn't work out too well in a bunch of places we tried it, was that the more you increase trade and interdependence, the more that you can have lift all boats and create more wealth, and that though it's less, according to the conservatives who make this argument, inequality is not the problem. It's how big do you grow the pie through having the profit motive and the competitive motive, but also trade. I understand there are a lot of ways we've seen that hasn't worked out the way we thought and that exposed during coronavirus. But what do you say to people who make that argument to you that we're one world and that the best way to have peace is to trade rather than to fight and to try to create more wealth altogether? I mean, there are all these issues like how much value we lose and hurt the environment by shipping stuff so far or not eating bioregionally or, I understand there are a lot of counter arguments.
Well, you need balance in every aspect of life. And on the material level, you need balance in three things. One, you need, the demand side. The people have wants and everybody has those desires. We need to have prioritize what is the most important needs of the people. And then you need to have goods and services which will fulfill those needs. And then you need purchasing power. If you don't have the purchasing power, even if there is demand and even if there is supply, you cannot have. So if you want to create a balance in the economic sphere, then we need to create a balance between these three things. Now, what is happening is that the purchasing power of people is going down and down. Inflation, due to inflation and due to, and the cost of things also goes up. The farther you bring things from, transportation costs, pollution costs and all these things, they increase. So as far as possible, if we want to minimize the costs, just from economical standpoint, I think it would be better if we create regional self-reliance, as far as possible. There you cannot, some things don't grow in certain places and you need to import. There is no problem to import from anywhere, but let the basic needs of all people be met. And that way also the income generation also goes back to the local people. And that way, you don't have a centralization of economic power, but you have a more decentralized, and there is a more parity in the wealth.
Well, to be honest, you are preaching to the choir here because I also share your thoughts about local self-reliance. And that got exposed in, as you said, in the. But there's also the demand side, as you pointed out. So, if people want more than they need to have, like, is it important to eat out of season cherry tomatoes or apples from South Africa rather than eating the apples that are grown in season here and then eating other fruits or canning. Is there an issue about demand? Because people, all the energy we use, like there are all these imperfect solutions. We thought fracking might help, and fracking, is a new form of pollution. Is there any alternative to working on lowering the demand for how much we think we need to be happy, or how much?
Well, I think these are small issues concerning the food aspect, because we have today the technology to be able to create food irrespective of the season through greenhouses or whatever. But I think it is we are investing so much of our funds in the military industrial complex. It is that we have to redirect the resources from that side to fulfilling the demands of
and
the
when
people.
we do that, we've worked a lot about, and maybe there'll be amazing more innovations with hydrogen that will allow us to create this energy to meet this insatiable need. And with AI, they're saying we're going to have whole entire farms of energy generation. Are you of the mind? Because I know my wife's big issue always is when she looks at all this stuff, says we just should not consume so much energy, which does not seem to be a popular position or where the human race is going. Where do you stand? Because I hear what you're saying, that if we didn't waste so much money in the military-industrial complex, if we found more peaceful ways of using our wealth and our generation, we could provide for a lot more people. So obviously we're not saying people should live on no calories a day.
Yeah.
But what about energy production and fossil fuels and looking, we're trying to do wind farms and solar. They have some of their issues as well. Do you agree with her that one of the fundamental issues as well is refocusing what we're aiming for in terms of not need to continue how much energy we generate in the first place, the demand side?
The sun is giving energy to this earth, and we hardly use, very small fraction of it we use. It is the greatest nuclear reactor we have is the sun itself. Now, our only problem is how to conserve that energy, how to store that energy. This is the biggest problem. And today, I have a friend in Thailand, and who is the president of a company called Thai Gypsum, and he created another company, Selenium. And he has one Italian scientist, Placido Spaziante, who has developed the system of you can store energy in electrolyte, just like you have water dams. See, water is a resource which we all need to survive. So we can create, fresh water dams where we can fulfill our needs of water. Similarly, energy also could be stored within these kind of dams called electrolyte dams, because and it has infinite shelf life, because vanadium or iron or some of these metals, they have properties where it is possible to store energy, because VO2, VO3, VO4, VO5, they have different oxidation states and they have different properties. So they have developed what is known as vanadium redox flow batteries. It is quite common. It is known now among the people who are working in the field of alternative energy storage systems, that this is one of the possibilities.
That would help with your decentralization, because we
Yes.
can have local power
Right.
cooperatives of neighborhoods rather than grids where we
Exactly.
lose so much of it going back and forth. How does this tie into the question with other kinds of alternative battery storage, when we're concerned about the raw materials that have to be taken out of the earth to supply them?
Well,
The electrolytes is a more locally based, environmentally friendly process?
This is better than some of the other alternatives, because they have also infinite shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
So this, from what I gather, from them, is that this would be much more efficient and much more, sustainable, approach for
I
the
really
whole.
love to hear more about that.
Yeah.
We're talking to Dada Shambhushivananda, a yogic monk who's touring our area from his home bases in Sweden and India, promoting neo-humanism. When you look at what's happening in Ukraine, you look up in the Middle East, Israel and Palestine, we're all feeling such despair about that. From the perspective of the philosophy you're promoting, any advice for us as individuals and as a world for how to approach these challenges? And it's okay if you don't feel you can solve the greatest problems of humanity in the next 20 seconds.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. We're all looking for guidance.
I think, one of the greatest obstacles we have is dogma. Religious dogma or scientific dogmas or economic dogmas or political dogmas. or dogmas which the leaders, So I think that the leaders have to think of new ways to solve problems. The old models of leadership, the old models of addressing these issues are not going to work because it is me versus them. And it is not win-win solution. So we have to look for win-win solutions where Palestinians also benefit, Israelis also benefit, Hamas is also satisfied, and somehow, we do. So that how to give up this war is the most ugly, it's only destroys. It destroys the nature. You see, so many millions of people have been uprooted from Ukraine. And it destroyed the nature completely. It was the breadbasket for grains and for many things is now completely. Inflation in Europe is skyrocketing. In Sweden where I live, I see something would cost 10 kroners is now 20 kroners, just doubled almost. So I think it is possible to solve the problems, but they cannot be solved by the mindset with which we are running the world today. This nation state itself is one of the biggest obstacles in solving the problems. China versus India, they are both trying to increase their arsenal of weapons and, so that they can, even they don't know if there will be a war or not war, but they are preparing for this. So once they prepare something, then sooner or later they are going to use it.
How do we get there? There's so many of us who feel like nations are a problem, but you can't just pick one nation and say, okay, you can't have that nation, but you can have others. How do we get there beyond the nation state?
Well, that is why I think we have
decentralization you talked about.
Global at the global level. For example, I think recently, Narendra Modi in G20 meetings in India, he tried to bring the people together and through dialogue and try to find some way that there could be some harmonious approach to dealing with issues. And I think we need many such leaders. I don't think he is the only one or he's the only one who is trying. I met with Prabowo Subianto, who is currently the defense minister in Indonesia, and he was the presidential candidate. And I spent many hours with him, and he learned meditation also from me. And he has also been speaking about how to bring about peace, in between Russia and the Europe and all these. So I think that we really need to invest more in dialogue and collaboration and discussions. And I think before we, go to war. And I think Israel also at this stage, I think even though what has happened to them is not nice, what Hamas has done, but I think they should not react to what they have done. Because if they react, then there's no difference between them and Hamas. They will be the same. So I think they have to come out and of course they will have to disarm Hamas, whether they do it now or whether they do it, after a few years. They will have to, because this process has to stop. And I think so we need more spiritually or based or enlightened consciousness. People at the helm of leadership, I think from all walks of life, have to come together, and because it affects all of us. It doesn't only affect.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You don't win long term by winning one day.
And our goal should be, let us look for win-win solutions for everybody. Let us create a world in which everybody wins and not nature loses or human beings win, animals lose and human beings win. No, it should be where the animals are also happy, the nature is happy, human beings are happy, of all races, all religions, they all are happy. So I think that is the direction we have to push the world towards. And I just start with children to create that consciousness in them so that they can be the future leaders of the humanity.
From your lips to God's ears. What's next on your trip?
Well, I'll be going back to Sweden and going back to Anand Nagar, which is where my projects are at the moment. But, I move around. I go all over the world, depends on where my, events take me. And but I'm here in New Haven for another 2 weeks. And if anybody needs to contact me, they can just contact Peter at the Edge of the Woods.
Peter Dodge.
Yeah, Peter Dodge.
Our Jewish tradition has something called Lamed Vavniks. It's the 36 righteous people who are alive at any time in the world. I have someone whose theory is that Peter is one of those 36. Anyway, Peter Dodge is at the Edge of the Woods, and he can get you in touch without Shambhushivananda. You could also find him on the web. There's a lot more to learn. Thank you so much for making time in your journey. You sure inspired me today.
Thank you.
I love learning about what you're up to, and I wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
The better you do, the better we all will do.
Yes, and I have a few books. I don't have them available right now, but Mystic Verses is a poetry book which I wrote, and I can share that with anybody who is interested. And then Thoughts for a New Era, which is a collection of my speeches that I've given, and Towards a Brighter Future, which is my spiritual memoirs book.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Peter Dodge, for arranging this, and to Harry Drost for working the controls and getting us into more platforms than there are multiverses. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.